From the station that's on your side, this is a News Channel 5, Your Voice, Your Vote special.
Welcome to our Democracy 2012, Your Voice, Your Vote webcast. We are streaming live on newsnet5.com as well as on your cell phone and your tablet devices. You can also join us online on chat at newsnet5.com, and we'll check in soon with our social media specialist, Janet Leakin, to find out what you're saying and asking us tonight. I am joined by Baldwin Wallace political science professor, Dr. Tom Sutton. How you doing, Tom?
Doing well. Good to be with you, Michael.
So we are just moments away, if you will, on Tuesday from this historic election here. What do you expect to see?
Well, of course, it's been a close election all season long. We saw some changes. We saw Obama pulling ahead, President Obama pulling ahead about a month ago after the 47% remark. Then we saw the first debate, and there we saw President Obama kind of asleep at the switch, and that gave Governor Romney the chance to pull ahead. And since then, we've seen an evening of the race. We're seeing it within the margin of error in most of the swing states, 11 of these states, including, of course, Ohio. Ohio is a must-win for one of these candidates to become President of the United States. It's almost impossible to win without Ohio, and that's why we are going to bed and waking up every day over the last month with ads constantly from both sides trying to become President of the United States.
What counties, I read an article which talked about basically 5 counties that it's really going to come down to. Talked about Cuyahoga, talked about Hamilton, talked about Franklin County, for example. I was in Hamilton the other day in Westchester, actually, with the Romney campaign. And when I talked to Senator Portman, he was telling me that he really thinks that Hamilton County could be a determinant in this election because the demographics have changed. It used to always be Republican. Right. Obama won it in 2008. Are you kind of seeing the same things, or do you think it's more the Columbus area that's really going to decide this election?
Well, I think it's going to be a combination. It really is about voter turnout, and in this case, it's about the voter turnout in the suburbs versus the urban areas of these 3 largest counties of Ohio. Cuyahoga, which has always been reliably Democrat, but which has fairly strong Republican strongholds in the western part of the county and the far eastern. Hamilton certainly has changed demographically a lot, and we've seen it move more towards the Democratic side, though it's still very split. And again, so it really boils down to how many of these voters that they've tried to get registered, they're actually going to get to turn out to vote, and of course that's the absentees, the walk-ins, and those voting on Election Day. Now,
I talked to you earlier about the ground game. Obama has a lot more offices, field offices in Ohio, right, over Romney?
The Obama campaign has over 160 field offices in Ohio versus about 40 for the Romney campaign. So we're seeing a ground game for the Obama campaign that really has been organized over the last 4 years and in many ways learned the lessons of 2008 where they had a very good ground game then. They have done micro-targeting of every kind of voter imaginable. Urban, young, senior citizen, persons of color, Caucasian, rural, suburban, and they've developed specific strategies for all of these different demographics. I think the Romney campaign has tried to do that, but in many ways, while the Romney campaign may have the edge on funding, particularly from outside groups, the Obama campaign, I think, has the edge when it comes to this grassroots organizing.
I saw a poll. I want to go over this board for a second here. And if you look at these ad wars here, in Virginia, during this presidential election, they've spent $150 million has been put in ads. In Florida, you're talking about $190 million that's been spent. And look at here, the big wallop, Ohio, $195 million. It kind of tells you where they think this race is going to come down to.
Absolutely. And it's interesting, I read a recent article that was talking about the Obama ground game, and they talked about the ad war as being a way of softening up the other side. And so the strategy for the Obama campaign was to launch their ad war actually in the spring, right around April, May, which was when we saw their campaign really kick off at the end of the primary season for the Republicans. And essentially what they wanted to do was to define Governor Romney on their terms to then launch the grassroots campaign in the fall. Governor Romney, likewise, got a lot of publicity and exposure through the primary process. Republicans and partisans got to know him through that process. Then his major challenge after becoming the nominee was to go to the middle, was to see if he could attract those independents, those undecideds, and that was really his focus throughout the summer. In many ways, his campaign did the same thing as the Obama campaign in that it was trying to define President Obama and doing some very clever strategies, including, we know you might have voted for the president 4 years ago, and it's okay to have done done that. But you need to take a hard look at where you're at today. The whole "are you better off than you were 4 years ago" question. And so we've seen this very interesting kind of definitional process by both through the ads and through the ground game.
When you look at where the polls are, I mean, the polls seem to be very, very tight, 1 or 2 points. And then you look at this, this ad spending right here. Do you think with the money that's been spent, I mean, this is $535 million if you add all this up, just in these 3 states.
Right.
Do you think that they're the messages are kind of canceling each other out, which is why you have the polls? Because you would think with all this money, somebody would be ahead and somebody would be behind.
Right. I think in many ways it does wind up being a draw, but in many ways, just like in warfare when you're launching air campaigns, this is a war of attrition. This is a war like trench warfare in World War I politically, in that you have to keep up at least as much advertising as the other side. You have to shift your strategies periodically so that it doesn't look stale, so that maybe you're reaching a few of those demographics you haven't reached before, but you can't let up. Now, even though voters are sick and tired in the swing states, as Ohioans well know, you can't let up, because if you do, that opens up ground for the other side. Frankly, all the ad space that was available in states like Ohio was bought up back in June. And it's really a matter of you have to keep that up, even if it doesn't sway things that much one way or the other. If you stop or you let off, it's going to give advantage to the other side.
Is there any negativeness? I mean, obviously you've had some ads that have been pretty negative,
Yes.
but as far as the voters, they're being so inundated with these ads. Could there be any negative reaction where they say, you know what, I don't want to vote, or I don't want to vote for this person or that person?
Well, studies that have been done about the effect of negative advertising in particular have shown that those that are in the independents, the middle, the undecideds tend to get driven out. They tend to be the ones that are not as committed to the process, vote occasionally, maybe vote in presidentials, but not in other kinds of races, and who do get sick and tired and who do get driven out. That is a strategy on both sides, because what you want on your side are those committed partisans who you know are going to vote for you, and you want to get as many of those out as possible, hoping that you've got more than the other side. Along the way, you're going to track some folks in the middle, and that has been a part of this strategy. But if you have to lose some of them to gain more of your partisans and get them out to vote based on, again, that micro-targeting and those demographics, et cetera, that's where your strategy is going to be. Now, does it make a lot of people sick of the process? Yes. But remember, this is about winning.
When you talk about these rallies that have been having, like Mitt Romney had one today, and Barack Obama is having several of them. Who are they targeting? Are they really targeting independent voters, or I mean, because most of the people there, I imagine, are already converted.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then we're seeing now in the polls that the numbers that are saying they're undecided or soft voters are in the 2 to 3 to 4% range. So really, we're only talking about a tiny slice of the electorate that hasn't made up their minds. And I would suggest even that may be an overcount. This is about, again, it goes back to revving up your base. They're the folks that are going to come to these things. They're the ones that are going to find out about the events, going to buy the get the tickets, and come to the events. And then your hope is that they will get revved up by going to that event, by the excitement, by the energy, and they're then going to do that extra effort to call friends, call neighbors, do the door-to-door knocking, do the phone banking, whatever it takes on the ground game, combined with what you're seeing in the ads to get your people out on Election Day.
Certainly very interesting. Mitt Romney had campaigned at the IX Center in Cleveland today. He told a crowd of 6,000 people that President Obama didn't deliver on his promise of change. Romney says he has a 5-point plan to rebuild the American economy, which includes taking advantage of energy resources and issuing an executive order giving states waivers in health care legislation passed by President Obama. Romney also told the crowd he could work with both parties. That's got to be a pretty big thing when we're talking about working with both parties. You've heard that kind of on both sides, that almost as if Mr. Obama, the president, doesn't really like to play the politics of the game. You almost have to play the politics of the game to get something done, no?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. We know that no major legislation gets done without compromise, that you have to be able to move to the middle. The challenges that you have are because we've become so partisan, not just in our presidential races, but in our congressional races, that those that were the middle legislators, the ones who were the pragmatists, who were the conservative Democrats, the liberal Republicans, have all but disappeared, because they were also the likely targets for the partisans, whether it was the hard right or the hard left, to take them out in the primaries. A great example of that is Indiana, where we saw Senator Richard Lugar, who was a moderate conservative Republican, but a senior member of the Republican delegation, who lost in the primary to Richard Murdoch, because Murdoch was represented as someone who had Tea Party support, who was seen as more of a right right-wing kind of candidate, but who won that primary, but in many ways also took out yet another moderate from the Senate, which means that you have less in the middle to work with when it comes to getting that major legislation passed. And you really do have this dynamic of, it may be the best idea in the world, but if the other side says it's a good idea, I'm not going to vote for it.
You know, as it's been well documented, Senator Mitch McConnell, senator from Kentucky, stood up on the Senate floor and said our #1 goal is to make sure, you know, Mr. Obama doesn't get reelected. You have to think, if Romney wins, and then the Democrats, let's say they maintain the Senate.
Yes.
Aren't they going to, isn't it going to be turnabout fair play? Aren't they going to be doing the same thing? They're just going to try to hold everything up?
Well, there is that likelihood, because certainly we saw when the Democrats took the majorities in 2006, and then when President Obama won in 2008, and they had that 2-year window where they held both the Senate and the House, and for a brief time had the 60-vote ironclad majority in the Senate. They did act like the majority ruling party that was not very willing to work with the Republicans, saying that this was just the way they'd been treated when the Republicans were in the majorities earlier under the Bush administration. Now we have a situation where it's reversing again, and it really is a question of, will they continue to play politics as usual? If the stakes are not high enough, then likely that's what we'll see. However, we're talking about major issues. We have the triple threat coming up at the end of December of the end of the Bush tax cuts, the end of the Social Security tax cut, and the sequestration that'll come about as a result of the budget deal last summer. If Congress does nothing and those things go into effect, the good thing is that over $500 billion will instantly appear into the federal budget next year. The bad thing is it will likely send our economy right into a recession. So that kind of cliffhanging is something that neither party can afford. Because right now, voters are taking it out on both parties. They took it out on the Democrats in 2010. They took it out on the Republicans in 2008. And now, voters don't have a choice. There is no third party to turn to. So they're really, this is, I think, part of what the dynamic is that we're seeing this year.
So then, are you thinking then that some type of deal is going to probably have to be made before that happens? You know, no matter who wins the election, a deal's going to be made.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, I think the deal will be to push it off again.
Okay.
So what we'll likely see is what we've seen in the last year or two, where we'll see the tax cuts extended for a certain period of time, both Social Security and the Bush tax cuts. The sequestrations, they'll come up with some kind of a short-term compromise. But the problem is that for Republicans and the Republican leadership, they have this right wing that is represented by the Tea Party supporters, the Republicans that got elected 2 years ago, and they are not willing to compromise. Paul Ryan is part of that group. On the Democratic side, they're seeing themselves as being with this bunker mentality if all they have left is the Senate. And even if they're in the minority in the Senate, say the Republicans take a majority, they can still use the filibuster to stop anything. And under those circumstances, I think, again, it will be pushing this off for another year or two, and then who knows?
President Obama is in Cincinnati right now at a grassroots event. Singer Stevie Wonder also joined the president at the event. The president told the crowd that picking him for the next 4 years over Romney is the best thing for the economy. Now, every day throughout this race, the Rasmussen organization has tracked the presidential race nationally and in battleground states. Today's national poll has the presidential race at a dead heat. Obama getting 49%, Romney getting 49%. Just 1% of those polls said they were still undecided. You know, you and I talked actually a little bit earlier today. When you think about these battleground states, you know, it's a 49-49. Introduce people, if you will, to a congressman from Virginia who could actually tip the race in Virginia for Mr. Obama.
Yes, this is the Virgil Goode situation.
Yeah.
Virgil Goode is an independent Republican. He's a Republican running as an independent for president. He's been a congressman from Southwest Virginia for a long time. He's running for president. He has a lot of appeal among Tea Party supporters, among those who were supporters of Ron Paul when he ran for the Republican nomination. And in Ohio, in certain counties we're seeing in southeast Ohio, we're seeing a number of people who are looking at voting for Virgil Goode, which could take some votes away from Governor Romney and could possibly contribute to tipping the balance in favor of President Obama.
I mean, I would think the Romney campaign has to be talking to, well, I guess nothing they can do, right? He's on the ballot, but it have to be trying to get out that message that, you know, if you vote for him, you're probably going to swing this election.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I believe the Romney campaign is doing everything it can at the grassroots level and through its advertising, not so much to go after Virgil Goode as a candidate, but to make clear a vote for Mr. Good likely is not a vote that's going to get somebody elected, that if anything, it could wind up with your worst nightmare realized, the election of President Obama again. And so in that case, while Governor Romney may not be everything you're looking for, he's certainly the better of the two choices. And trying to avoid a repeat of the Ralph Nader effect in 2000, Pat Buchanan effect.
All right. Today was the next to last day for early voting in person at your county's Board of Elections. Tomorrow is the final day of early voting, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Here are the latest numbers from early voting, not counting today. As you can see it right there, in-person voting, 400,995, 537, and the source comes from the Ohio Secretary of State. Do you know, I'm not sure about this, but is that up or down from previous years? That's definitely up compared to 4 years ago.
4 years ago, our total before Election Day voting, absentee voting was about 32% statewide. The projections are now we're probably looking at 40%. The in-person early voting, which is certainly at least as high, if not higher, than it was 4 years ago. I think this, again, this ground game, this trying to get people to vote now, both sides have been doing this ever since October 2nd. I think this is having an effect, and this is going to put it up at least 5 points over 4 years ago.
We've seen and heard so much from each of the presidential candidates on the campaign trail this fall, but how well do you know them? Let's take a couple minutes to find out more about Mitt Romney.
And tonight I'm asking you to join me to walk together to a better future.
Mitt Romney is the Republican presidential candidate. The 65-year-old former Massachusetts governor is married to Ann Romney, and they have 5 children. But who is Mitt Romney? Willard Mitt Romney was raised in Michigan and is the son of the late George Romney. He spent 1966 as a missionary in France. When he returned, it was Ann Davies that convinced Romney to attend Brigham Young University. The two got married in 1969 and have been together ever since. Several years after graduating Harvard, Romney formed Bain Capital. The company took off, making millions. In 1994, he took that capital and ran for the U.S. Senate against Ted Kennedy. His argument about health care then might sound familiar now.
I do not think it's a good idea to have the federal. I do not think it's a good idea to have the federal government take over our health care system.
Romney lost the election and returned to Bain, but an even bigger possible loss consumed him. His wife Ann was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
I read somewhere that Mitt and I have a storybook marriage.
The Romneys say it was anything but.
And those storybooks never seem to have chapters called MS or breast cancer.
Ann Romney is a breast cancer survivor. In 2002, Romney ran the Olympics in Salt Lake. After it was over, he took another shot at politics, running for governor and winning. His positions then have evolved since he announced he's running for president.
I've indicated what my position is with regards to gay rights in Massachusetts. I want to preserve and protect those. I also want to extend domestic partnership benefits.
We tend to see it as flip-flopping, but the fact of the matter is that when your constituency changes, as a representative, you need to try to represent that constituency.
Once pro-choice, Romney is now pro-life. He favors sweeping tax cuts, which he says will create millions of jobs, including 400,000 here in Ohio. He wants to repeal Obamacare, but the burning question, is he the right choice? That decision, up to you. Michael Baldwin, News Channel 5. All right, folks, I got to tell you, that Michael Baldwin and Tom Sutton, they're pretty good there. Anyway, here are the numbers tonight, again, from the Rasmussen Daily Tracking Poll from Ohio. Obama, 49%. Romney, 49%. This is literally going right down to the wire. Barack Obama has been our 44th president for almost 4 years, but how much do you know about him? News Channel 5's John Kosick takes a look at the commander-in-chief.
Barack Obama was born in Hawaii in 1961. His mother from Kansas, his father from Kenya. But when his parents divorced and his mother remarried, Obama would move with his family to Indonesia for several years before returning to Hawaii at age 10. There he was raised with the help of his grandparents. After graduating from Columbia University in 1983, he landed in Chicago and began a career as a community organizer. He would later enter Harvard Law School, not long after meet his future wife, Michelle. The two married in 1992 and would later have two daughters, Sasha and Malia. It was in Chicago in 1996 as President Bill Clinton was being nominated at the United Center for a second term that not far away from the arena, Obama was campaigning for his first office, a seat in the Illinois State Senate. While a state senator, he became a rising star and in 2004 ran for the U.S. Senate, stopping in Cleveland that summer to talk to young Democrats.
Things change because of people like you who have decided to put your shoulder to the wheel and change history, and you can do it again this time in this election.
In 2006, he would come back to Cleveland, stumping for votes for Democrats Sherrod Brown and Ted Strickland. 3 months later, he would make the announcement everyone expected.
My candidacy for President of the United States of America.
One of his first campaign stops right after, Northeast Ohio.
We want to make sure that we're getting here early, meeting people, learning about the issues.
He would win that race for president and continue to visit Ohio more than 30 times, more than half of those visits this year alone, and many of them here in Northeast Ohio.
Hello, Cleveland State! Hello, Kent State! Hello, Falcons! Hello, Buckeyes!
This summer, we joke with the president about that. Is there any truth to the rumor you're doing this to establish residency so you can vote here in November?
I tell you, I probably don't need to vote in Chicago as much as I do in Ohio, but I'm not going to take advantage of those loopholes.
As he makes the final push in this, his last campaign, he asks Ohioans for the chance to build on what has started.
We've got a long way to go. A lot of folks are still out of work, but what we've shown here in Ohio is that we still have the best workers in the world, innovative companies who want to invest here, and what we have to do is create the kind of atmosphere in terms of making sure we've got a well-educated workforce, great transportation systems, and a tax code that rewards companies that invest here in Ohio. If we do that, then not only is it going to be good for Ohio, but it's a good example for the country as a whole.
All right, fantastic reporting by John Kosick there. The final polling numbers on Ohio's U.S. Senate race are out from Rasmussen Reports. Sherrod Brown and Josh Mandel are in a dead heat, 48% to 48%, with 2% undecided. Mandel was on the stage at the IX Center earlier today, and one thing he talked about, he said at one point he was 17 points down. He said by Thanksgiving he was 15 points. Super Bowl he was 12 points. Last month, he was 7 points, and he said, as of yesterday, they are tied. Is that a momentum, you think, from Romney, or what's going on there? I'm trying to look at those numbers.
Good question. I think we're seeing a couple of things. I think definitely there's a Romney momentum, in some ways a coattail effect that Josh Mandel is benefiting from. I think also the Mandel message continues to change, and it's changing in ways that are attracting undecided voters and voters in the middle. It's a message that's talking about Senator Brown has been in Washington too long, that he's been in politics too long, the message of change, also the message that he's a fresh face, that he's going to do things differently, that you need different in order for things to happen in Washington. And I think that message is resonating, and this is part of what we're seeing in the difference in the polling numbers.
We have a question from a viewer. We're going to get right over to Janet Leakin. Janet, what do you got? She's our social media producer. What's the question?
We did receive some questions on our web chat on newsnet5.com, and one user named Bob wants to know what the internal polls are showing in Ohio and if the votes are already cast in Ohio.
That's for you.
Good question. Well, I would say the internal polling we really don't know, because both candidates are going to be very positive. Both campaigns are going to be very positive about their numbers. So I think we have to rely on what we know from the public polling. The Pew report shows a 3-point advantage for President Obama nationally, and a similar advantage, 1 to 3 points in Ohio and a few other states. The Rasmussen poll that you mentioned is a dead tie. You have to look at some issues involving the polling strategies. Rasmussen does an auto-dial poll where people have to use buttons, whereas the Pew poll tends to be also based on person-to-person voice and cell phones. So we see some differences there.
We obviously don't know what the internal polls are, but you would have to think that since the president's going to be in Columbus tomorrow, Romney's going to be in Columbus tomorrow, as kind of their last time that they're both in Ohio, that their campaigns have to be thinking that's where the race is going to be decided for this state.
I think so, yeah. That definitely is your biggest indicator. Where are they showing up in the last day or two? And the fact that they're continuing to come to Ohio certainly is a strategy to try to sway Ohio because it's so close. I think also some of the things like trying to open up space in Pennsylvania and in Michigan, where we saw the Romney campaign saying we're going to move into those areas that previously been predicted to be going for President Obama. Now, whether that's an attempt to divert or it's an attempt where they really think based on their internal polling there may be a chance of winning, we will see.
Okay. I'm going to go over to this board over here just for a second. I'm going to go and turn this around. And my friend Janet, I could use your help real quick. Because this right here, we have the race for 270. This is what we're going to do, the Real Clear Politics right over here. The Real Clear Politics, they basically have states leaning Obama. They have 201 electoral votes, and they have states electoral votes that lean Romney as 191. They basically have these states in here that are the ones that are in play: Nevada, Colorado, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, which was a surprise to me, Ohio, Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, and New Hampshire. So Janet has much better handwriting than I do, so we're going to kind of play this out. I mean, as the election's coming up, you know, where do you see these states going?
Well, I have the electoral votes written down for all of these states.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
So if I were making a prediction based on the trends, based on the polling numbers, et cetera, working our way down, I would probably say I would put Nevada's 6 votes as leaning Obama.
Okay. Now, why do you think it's going? Is it the Hispanic population?
It's a combination of the Hispanic population and the fact that most of the population is concentrated in the urban areas of Las Vegas and Reno. And that tends to be an area where you're stronger for Democratic candidates and for Obama. The Harry Reid effect, the fact that he won a tough fight 2 years ago for re-election, I think also plays in favor of the president.
Beating out Sharon Angle. Okay.
That's right.
How about Colorado?
Colorado, I'm going to put in the Romney camp. Colorado tends to be a more conservative, libertarian-leaning state. While they're doing better economically than many states, I don't think they necessarily give President Obama the credit, and so I'm going to put them in the Romney camp at this point. And
I thought I've seen some polls where Obama's kind of leading Colorado. Do you think it's going to end up going to Romney?
I think it may go Romney. Yeah. The polls are showing a little bit of a lean towards President Obama, but I think this one may go for Romney.
Okay. Iowa.
Iowa, definitely, I'm going to put in the Romney camp.
Okay.
Again, it's a rural state. While it's a favored state by President Obama because it was the first caucus he won 4 years ago, the sentimental tie I don't think is enough to really sway it. I think really we're going to see that one probably go slightly for Governor Romney.
Wisconsin?
Wisconsin, that's a tough one, and I think it's probably one of the biggest of the swings, along with Ohio and Virginia.
That's where Paul Ryan is from, obviously.
It's where Paul Ryan's from. I'm going to, just for argument's sake, put it in the Romney camp.
Okay, all right.
Just for argument's sake.
Boy, Romney would love to have that, wouldn't he?
He would, and you would certainly think he would, given the Republican governor and all the other Republicans that are, and the fact that the chair of the Republican National Committee is from Wisconsin, et cetera. Michigan,
the home state of Romney, where he was born anyway.
Michigan, yeah, it's his home state, where he was born, not where he resides now, but I'm going to put that in the Obama camp.
Okay, all right.
Particularly because of the auto bailout and the fact that Michigan benefited most directly from that, along with Ohio.
Romney's campaigned a little bit in Pennsylvania recently. Where's this going to go?
I think the Romney wish for Pennsylvania is like the McCain wish 4 years ago. And on that basis, I'm going to put Pennsylvania in the Obama camp.
I'm going to skip Ohio for right now. We're going to go to Virginia after that. Where's Virginia land?
Virginia could go either way. This is a tough one. I think the polling is showing it leaning slightly towards Obama, but again, for argument's sake, I'm going to put it in the Romney camp.
Okay, really?
Yeah, they've got a tough Senate fight for an open seat, where you've got George Allen, the Republican former governor, running against former Governor Tim Kaine. And I think that combination could go either way. But I'm going to just, again, I'm going to keep it over in the Romney camp.
All right, let's kind of fly through these because we're running out of time here. North
Carolina, Romney.
North Carolina's going to Romney.
I'm going to give North Carolina and Florida to Romney.
Florida, 29 electoral votes.
Yeah, I'm going to give Florida to Romney, and I'm going to give New Hampshire to President Obama.
Okay, so if you've done that, that leaves one state left, clearly the decider.
Yes.
Where are we going?
Well,
Ohio.
My numbers show that based on this, your electoral votes are going to be 263 for Governor Romney and 257 for President Obama. And so Ohio decides the race.
And the winner is, hold up. That's bad, I know. All right. Who is it?
I'm going to give a slight advantage to President Obama.
President Obama.
Very slight advantage. But again, that's with a lot of hedging.
With all,
I
see so much excitement with the Romney folks and the energy with their voters.
Absolutely.
I mean, you don't think they're going to come out in full force and take Ohio for?
I think they will. I think they will. But I think the excitement that has built over the last few weeks for the Romney camp and for Romney voters versus the organized ground game battle strategies at the grassroots level for President Obama, I'm giving the advantage slightly to that strategy over the strategy that we're seeing here with Governor Romney, and I'm comparing that to 8 years ago. With 2004, we saw a similar kind of dynamic, only it was reversed. And in that case, President Bush had the ground game, John Kerry had the excited crowds, and President Bush took Ohio by 80,000 votes.
Certainly very, very interesting. Clearly, we will find out what's going to happen on November 6th. We'll see if you're right. We'll see if Romney is able to pull this state out. All right, for more on today's and tomorrow's presidential campaign visits here in the Buckeye State, as well as more on today's early voting, be sure to watch News Channel 5 at 11 and wake up to Good Morning Cleveland at 4:30 a.m. for the latest news from overnight with Mike and Macy. All right, that is going to do it. I want to thank you for joining us. We also have another webcast, just so you know, Monday night. That, of course, will be hosted by the great John Cossack, who is our political man. God knows everything about Ohio politics. He will be doing that. And remember, the polls will be closing in less than 24 hours, folks. So be sure to watch. That'll be on Monday, of course. But be sure to watch newsnet5.com on your mobile device and every place else, your tablets, all that good stuff. No matter where you are, we got you covered. All right, thanks for joining us. We will see you back here tomorrow.
Okay.